And thank you for having me here today. It's exciting. And yeah, in fact, the area between, I think, business and technology, especially these days, is very interesting. So my talk will be general, talking about Scania, where we are, where we're kind of heading, and a little bit broader level, where we see, and I see where the transport system is going. We'll give you also some examples of what we are doing, and also in collaboration with others. So give you some examples of projects or applications, and then of course have a discussion about the requirements that this will have on the future 5G or whatever. But I'm not the really technical guy going into details, more on a broad level. So let's start there. To start with, I think in general, I think we are going through a real shift. I think tomorrow a car manufacturer is not anymore a car manufacturer. It's probably providing access to mobility and not providing cars or selling cars. He's selling mobility. And also for truck manufacturers as us, we are maybe not, or probably not, our key is not to providing or selling trucks. It's selling logistic services, transport services, more or less. And this is a race right now going on everywhere. I guess you can see it. Most of the competitors to car manufacturers today is not the other car manufacturers. It's Google, it's Uber, it's Lyft, it's whatever, car sharing companies and so on. So this is a race going on with a lot of investments from automobile sector. But let's talk about where we are coming from at Scania. Since we are a company 130 years old, and we are producing not only trucks, but buses and also engines for marine and industrial purpose. On the way, okay, from the beginning, we're mainly a hardware producer, of course, but on the way, we've been adding services, mainly then, of course, related to the product, like maintenance, service agreements, driver training, Scania rental services, etc. Also, a number of financial services. So we are more and more coming into our customers' business and adding services and solutions. Today, our main strategy is, of course, to offer sustainable transport solution. And one change is mainly that we are kind of heading forward in the value chain. So historically, we've been mainly focused on the cost side of our customers that are operating the trucks or buses. And the cost side is mainly fuel, it's the driver of the truck, and it's repair and maintenance and the financing. And each of these is approximately 1/3 of the cost. So the driver is 1/3 of the cost, the fuel is 1/3 of the cost, and repair and maintenance and financing is 1/3 of the cost, approximately. Something to remember. So we've been mainly working on the cost side to reduce the costs side of our customers. What is changing now is we're going more into the profitability side of our customers. So it means also much more that we have to work closer with what we call our customers, the ones buying the transport or logistic service or mobility service. It could, for instance, be, if you take a broad level, it could be a city to solve problems for a city. And the solution for a city that have congestion problem is not selling more trucks or selling more buses. They need other kind of problems. They need other solutions. And also, like the fill rate of a truck is something that is on the profitability. That's where our customers are earning money. They need to fill the truck as much as possible to earn money and be in time and have a reliable transport. And that's where we are now heading to work more on this side, and where the digitalization is giving us also a lot of new opportunities. So in that way, we are becoming more and more a part of the transport and logistic and mobility system as such. And I would give you, give you an idea of, I mean, the last transformation or transition we had of a transport system was in fact when we were going from horses to trucks or vehicles, automobiles. And that was end of 1800 something, 1890, 1880 maybe, was it? I think so. And that was really the last transformation of the big transition of our transport system. And in fact, I'm sure about that we are now in the middle of a transition to something that we really don't know where it will end up. But what is needed for a transition is not only, I think, a technical, even if digitalization is very important. There are other things that we can see. In fact, just to take it shortly, because I think you know about this, urbanization is one key. Causing congestion, a lot of new challenges for big cities. Climate change, of course, where we transported to is today still reliable on 96% is still fossil fuels in the transport industry. So we had to make it much more efficient in all ways, in every aspect. Safety is, of course, still a very huge issue coming to transport, as you know. Congestions, as I said, is an increasing challenge. We'll come back to that. Energy efficiency, huge challenge. Let's see. Sustainability. Noise is becoming a very important issue for cities, to reduce noise for attractive cities. And emissions, not only carbon emissions, but it's also NOx and things like that, still a very important issue. It's rather a bit slow, I think. Latency, is it? Don't have 5G here. Sharing economy, come back to that, because this is also driving the new business models. On the other hand, on the other side, so this is kind of landscape business drivers. On the other side, you have a lot of new technologies coming up. For us, it's about electrification, hybridization, started with active safety things, connectivity, electrification, smart infrastructure, automation, big data. One more, I think. Come on. Internet of Things. Of course, I think that. So everything of this is together, kind of changing the whole system. And really, we don't know what the new system would look like. What actors, what business models, and so on. So we really need to understand, explore, and be there to understand what is. And of course, be a part of it. Come on. Nothing happening. Maybe try this instead. Drones, artificial intelligence, cloud services, etc. So I already mentioned this in general, I think, but one key challenge is of course, mobility and the logistics in cities for urban transport, where we see a lot of problems, mainly connected to congestions, and in fact very much related to e-commerce that is growing, and therefore creating a lot of transport with smaller vans, with low filling rates, etc., where the cities don't have, in fact, of control of what is happening. And a lot of other issues around cities. So for instance, This is one key for us and one key opportunity, of course, because if you look on one thing is if you look on trucks, this is average in I think in city food transport. The filling rate is about 50% in average in trucks. So there already is a lot of waste in the system, of course. And also about 20% of all trucks are running empty today. And if you look on the productive time of trucks in cities, it's 30%. When I say productive time, I mean the rest of the time they are standing still in congestions, loading or unloading, or something else that is not productive time, where they don't earn money. And also, it's not allowed to drive during nights, for instance. So in that sense, the productive time is even lower. And looking on cars, as you know, it's even worse, because your own private car is in fact parked 96% of the time. And when you're driving it, you're almost sitting alone every time. So in that sense, the productive efficiency, productive time of a car is 1%. And that's really a waste, isn't it? So this is a key driver, of course, for this mobility as a service, automation, especially automation also, where you can avoid these things and have much more higher uptime on all of this. So this is really a key driver for also automation. And also in the same way, the costs for congestions is enormous in Europe. It's about 133 million euros, and it's increasing even more, 1% of GDP. Coming to connectivity, we started at Scania 2011, 5 years ago, to have the communicator in every truck. So from that time, every truck and bus, in fact, is connected to the network. And then, of course, the customer decides if to connect and how to connect. But so today we have about 180,000 connected trucks to the network. So this, of course, gives a lot of opportunities and challenges. Someone mentioned the ecosystem here, and that's something very important. But you can talk a lot about this picture. I know Kalle will talk a lot about what we are doing today, go deep into platooning, which is mainly today vehicle-to-vehicle communication also. But talking about what we can do by interacting with the cloud or with the ecosystem, with other kinds of data, except from the vehicle data, like operation, vehicle specification, customer information. You can have road information, workshop history, traffic information, weather information, or whatever. And the key, real challenge here is, besides from the technology side, of course, is also how do you create value, and what value, and who is doing what in this. And also, as I said earlier, the architecture here. What should we do? Today we're mainly focused on the vehicle itself with sensor intelligence and so on. But it's a good question here also. How do you do this in the future? What do you have what intelligence do you have in the vehicle? What do you have in the cloud, or whatever? Of course, it depends on things, like you said, what latency and things like that you're depending on. I guess I know for platooning, it's very, of course, very high performance requirements on that. So could talk a lot about these things, but I think I leave it there. Just one more thing. Thinking about the truck as a sensor as such, with all the data it's collecting, it's very interesting. So it can collect every kind of data. I saw an example from Canada where they equipped all public transport, taxis, etc., with sensors that could, in real time, look on the emissions in the city. And then they collected the data, and then they had the real data on heat maps on the emissions in the city. So you can use the vehicles for a lot of things, since they are everywhere in the cities. Okay, nothing happening again. I think I leave the platooning since Kalle is coming into this, but this we can see that doing this right, it gives a lot of values for society, for our customers, and also for us. Talking broadly more about autonomous vehicles, this is happening different times. What we are doing now mainly is focusing on protected areas, like we are doing demonstrations already in mining with systems of totally autonomous trucks with a control center and things like that. We are also, of course, going into autonomous driving on highways, like platooning, and also looking in research and so on city applications for autonomous driving. And this is, of course, the greatest challenge for us also coming into cities. Okay. Use this again. I'll come back a little bit to the challenge. I gave you some minor examples also what you can do, not only with, it's mainly more about using big data and sensors or big data and things like that. But one thing, as you maybe know, that we are working on in Sweden with more longer and heavier vehicles. So hopefully this year we will have a permission to drive with 74-ton trucks. Could be up to 32 meters like this. But you're only allowed to drive these trucks on roads where they are permitted to go. So therefore we are developing in collaboration with traffic authority and so a system based on our fleet management system, where you connect it and where you can have control. So it's a kind of control system where you have control over where these trucks are, where they are running and not allowed to run. So it could also be more or less in real time, because where you give allowance. And you can adapt this to our system for trucks to go into cities. For instance, based on what performance you have on the truck, you can have dynamic driving, I would say, körfält, driving fields, what's the name? Lanes, sorry. Lanes where public transport can go or not go, based on also on performance, maybe based on what kind of fuel, what kind of load, how much load, and so on. So this kind of intelligence access systems is growing. Just to mention, even if it's not one challenge for us, what we are working is of course electrification of trucks and buses. And one system for long distance is electric roads. And we worked on different projects. So this is also kind of system that you have to create. And one of them is like the payment system, where we've worked closely with Ericsson and telecom industry and other to look on how do you do this to pay for the energy you're using when you're connected to the system. So another example of where you see connectivity. So in fact, we're building the first electric road in the world. It's soon ready. It's in Gävle. So you have a possibility. It's not very far from here then. I think it's ready in a month or something, 1 or 2 months. It's not working now either. Another project is when you look on transport industry, it's very administrative burden for both transport buyers and transport companies, because you need to report, follow up, and so on mainly on carbon emissions from transport. And we are now doing a project together now with a number of partners to do this, try to do this in real time, to report what fuel, what kind of Euro standard on the engine, how much carbon emissions, and so on. To combine that with the transport buyer, to have a control reporting system between the transport buyer and the operator. So this is a pilot, rather quick pilot that we'll do in this autumn. Also, I would like to mention a cooperation. We're having very interesting cooperation with Ericsson through KTH and a center at KTH called ITRL, Integrated Transport Research Labs. We are doing research, collaboration, demonstrations on the system level. And one of the key things we are doing is setting up a kind of living lab in Kista, where Ericsson is, that we call Connected Mobility Arena. So we will, together with Ericsson, set up 5G, cloud services, etc. And we will try out, test, demonstrate autonomous, mainly buses in different demonstrations during a number of years to come, where we can do both research and demonstrate new solutions. So this is very interesting, talking about combining research and demonstration. So I'm soon ready. One more minute. I think this could somehow maybe summarize a little bit about the development that we could see. I think what we so far have been working on very much is on looking on one truck or one bus and optimize the operation of one vehicle. And you can both monitor with all sensors in the truck. You can monitor all components in the truck, the engine, the axles, whatever. So you know when to make the repair and services of the truck in advance. And in the end, you can then diagnose also, of course, what might be the error or coming need of service. You can, in the end, we can also we can already do it in small scales, but you can of course upgrade the vehicle remotely. And coming to in the longer run, you can then upgrade the vehicle with new services and so on. I guess maybe you know what Tesla is doing today, for instance, where you can put more horsepowers, whatever, new services to the company. And in the end, you can also manage then, and that is where we're coming to the highest requirements, I think, on the network here also, where you can manage the truck from a control, maybe from a control tower. We see that in future maybe there is or there isn't, we don't know, a driver, but in some circumstances there is no driver in the seat of the truck. He's sitting there instead, somewhere. But the question about what intelligence you have here and what you have in the truck and these discussions is it's still an open question, I think, to be where we need more research. And then coming to managing the whole platoon, Kalle will come back to this, because this is kind of another step. Another step is managing transport from A to B in a very efficient way. ETA is estimated time of arrival, where you forecast based on all kind of data, to be in time, because this is the window where you make the transport, to be in time, where you can calculate this much better, to have an energy, also an efficient, as an efficient transport as possible. And in next step, we're coming to more to, I think, now coming into more and more systems. So that's also what we're working on with KTH very much, with what I talked about, managing whole systems like a mine, not only with trucks, but in the end also with all kind of vehicles in a mine, from a control tower again. So this is, of course, next step. And in the end, in the end, we're talking about managing maybe whole systems of transport in cities, with all, not only goods but also people, where both people, vehicles, all goods and all vehicles are connected. And you need to also somehow manage this also in many times in real time. So this is a really huge challenge. And of course, we don't know really what our role is in this still. But what we know is that we need to cooperate with a lot of other stakeholders and so on to make this happen. So I think that was the last slide. So if you have any questions now, please.
Thank you, Ulf. Any question? I liked your analogy about the low filling rate. It's very similar to the communication networks that you buy in, and it's also interesting to hear that it's sort of that we buy more things online that drives this development, so that you want your package sent home to you, but then the car goes almost empty. So that's, is this
something you don't think of when you are a private consumer? And it's also the free where you can the free return that is creating a lot of transport. Yes.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, okay.
Joachim. Okay.
So, thank you for this interesting talk, Joachim Sachs from Ericsson. I have a question. If you go to your last slide, what do you see? So if you can go one slide back. I mean, in order to make this work, one side that we are engaged in with is kind of working on the technology, but from the making this reality, you have to find the right partnerships and so on. But now you, Scania, you are working for trucks. They are global. They are going around. So if you want to optimize urbanization, you can make find partners for Stockholm or so for getting this done here. But then your trucks are in Paris. And what is needed kind of for making this scale? Does it need to be harmonized in every city in Europe, or how do you get this orchestrated of getting all these?
Good, very good.
A common solution there.
Yeah, very good question. I was in a seminars a couple of weeks here in Stockholm, Eureka, that was about smart cities. Very interesting. But from that you can see that that was a discussion there also, because each city today is kind of developing their own infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and own standards. And of course we can't push this, of course, but something we have to do together also. But otherwise we risk that each city, for instance, have their own standards, their own infrastructure, their own platforms. And I think this is a very important question for the future.
Okay, we have a last question from Ali.
Yes, I was looking at the infrastructure that you're building and also the engineering, and do you think that this could be adapted for other industries? In other words, could you find a whole new line of business or services based on what you're doing with trucks, but maybe servicing an entirely different genre, sort of like Amazon moved from books into business logistics?
Very interesting question, of course. And if I knew, I wouldn't say it, of course. But it's probably possible. And if you have an idea, so Maybe going to art. No, very interesting question. Yeah. It's probably so.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.